Eva Coleman had spent the last 3 years perfecting the art of being invisible. In the glass and steel jungle of Titan Tech Tower, where billion-dollar deals were made under the cold gleam of LED lights. No one noticed the janitor who polished the floors and emptied the trash. And that was exactly how Eva wanted it. Keep your head down. Speak only when spoken to. Leave no trace except the faint smell of lemon cleaner. It was a survival tactic she had mastered after life had chewed up her ambitions and spit them out, leaving her in a gray uniform instead of a lawyer's suit. But invisibility had its advantages. People rarely guarded their words or their secrets around her. And on this particular night, that invisibility would become her greatest weapon. Titan Tech's 60-story tower rose like a shimmering blade into the night sky, its windows reflecting the city's neon heartbeat. On the top floor, Eva moved silently. Across the executive boardroom, her cloth circling over the vast mahogany table that could seat 20 men who thought they ruled the world. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city glowed in a wash of lights. But Eva's attention was caught by the faint smudge of a fingerprint on the glass. She leaned in to wipe it away, her reflection staring back at her tired eyes. Hair pulled back, a woman the world had decided not to see. Window streaks, again. The voice sliced through the quiet like a scalpel. Eva stiffened and turned. Richard Carlton, CEO of Titan Tech, strode into the boardroom with the casual authority of a man who owned everything his gaze touched. 6'2", silver streaks in his dark hair and a custom navy Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent, he was the embodiment of polished arrogance. "What do we even pay you for?" he snapped, his blue eyes glinting with irritation. "I'll fix it right away, sir," Eva said evenly, lowering her gaze. She had learned that looking men like him in the eye often led to trouble. Richard tossed a thick folder onto the table, and several pages fluttered to the carpet. "And pick that up. The Halvix team will be here in an hour." Everything needs to be perfect. Eva crouched, gathering the papers with careful fingers. She had no business reading them, but habit and old instincts died hard. Before Titan Tech, she had been a legal assistant at one of the city's top corporate law firms. She could read contracts like other people read novels. Her eyes flicked across a paragraph about intellectual property licensing, and something deep in her memory stirred. The wording felt wrong. A page footer caught her attention. Version B, she frowned slightly, shuffling the pages. The others said version A, a small difference, one most people would never notice. But in high-stakes corporate law, version discrepancies were rarely accidents. The soft chime of the elevator broke her focus. Grant Holloway, the lead negotiator from Halvix, entered with the smooth confidence of a predator. He was in his 40s, handsome in a calculating way, with slick-back hair and a smile that felt like a mask. 3 other executives followed, 2 men and a woman, each carrying sleek black portfolios. Richard Grant spread his arms as if they were old friends, his voice warm and oily. "The big day is finally here." Eva moved to the windows, cloth in hand, pretending to be absorbed in polishing. "The merger of the decade," Richard replied, beaming. "$100 million is just the beginning." They shook hands, and the Halvix team took their seats. Eva circled the room quietly, a ghost among titans. "Integration timeline seems ambitious," one of the Halvix men said. "Ambitious is how we make history," Grant said smoothly. "By the time the ink is dry, we'll be halfway there." Eva's skin prickled. Something about his tone, the hint of possession in his words, set off alarm bells in her mind. She drifted closer under the guise of adjusting a chair, her ears tuned to every word. "Are you sure Titan Tech's board won't catch on?" the female executive asked in a low voice. "They won't," Grant said, a smirk playing on his lips. "Their CEO is too busy chasing headlines, and their legal team. Please, they're blind. By tomorrow, Halvix will own the crown jewels before they even realize it. Eva's heart hammered. Crown jewels. He wasn't talking about gems. He meant Titan Tech's technology, the proprietary designs and code that made the company valuable. She forced herself to keep moving, hiding the tremor in her hands. By the time the meeting ended, Eva was certain of two things. Something was very wrong with this merger, and no one in power could see it. She stayed invisible until the last executive left, then wheeled her cart toward the service elevators. Her shift was nearly over, but her mind was racing. Julian Parker, the head of security, was at the desk on the first floor, scrolling through camera feeds. His warm smile was a rare comfort in the cold building. "Rough night?" he asked. Noticing her tense expression, Dadafa hesitated, then said, "You could say that. Those Halvix people. They give me a bad feeling." Julian leaned in, lowering his voice. "You're not wrong. I saw them on the feeds last night. They were here until 3 a.m. on the legal floor." Eva froze. The legal floor? Yeah. Whole team. No reason for them to be there this late unless they're up to something. He shrugged. "But hey, not my problem. I just watched the cameras." Eva nodded absently, but her decision was already forming. Instead of heading home, she took the service stairs down to the basement where the document processing room hummed with quiet machines. This was where sensitive documents were copied, scanned, and shredded. She had seen Richard's assistant dumping papers there earlier. If Halvix was up to something, the evidence might already be in pieces. The room was empty. Eva knelt by the industrial shredder, opening the bin. Most of the contents were confetti, but a few pages were jammed in the blades. Her pulse quickened as she carefully tugged them free. She spread the crumpled pages. On the metal table, under the harsh fluorescent light, two versions of the same contract section. One included a clause that protected Titan Tech's ownership of its technology. The other quietly deleted it. If Richard signed the wrong version, Halvix would legally own everything. Eva snapped photos with her phone, then tore a small corner off the altered page for physical proof. The weight of what she held sank in. $100 million betrayal. And she was the only one who knew. The door creaked. Eva's head snapped up. Emily, Richard's young assistant, stood in the doorway, her eyes narrowing. "What are you doing?" "Here," Eva forced a calm smile. "Just emptying the trash before I clock out." Emily glanced at the shredder, then shrugged. "Hurry up. I'm setting the alarm in 5 minutes." When the door shut, Eva exhaled slowly, KO, her hand trembling as she tucked the paper into her pocket. That night, she walked out of Titan Tech into the cool darkness of the city, staring up at the gleaming tower. Inside that fortress of glass, billionaires were plotting to steal a company, and the only person who could stop them was the janitor they all ignored. Eva didn't sleep that night. She sat cross-legged on the edge of her small apartment bed, staring at her phone, scrolling through the photos she had taken of the two contract versions. The city lights from her single window cast long shadows across the peeling wallpaper. Her hands were shaking, though whether from fear or adrenaline, she couldn't tell. She had spent years as a silent observer, fading into the background. But tonight, she was holding a secret that could decide the fate of a billion-dollar empire. She thought about who she could trust. Richard Carlton, the CEO. No, he barely remembered her name and had dismissed her like furniture. The legal team? They were either incompetent or already compromised. Her mind flashed to Julian Parker, the head of security. He was sharp and observant, and unlike the rest of the building, he treated her like a human being. Maybe he could help. The next day at Titan Tech, Eva kept her head down, cleaning offices and conference rooms like always, but her ears and eyes were wide open. The building buzzed with anticipation. Tomorrow was the official merger signing. A celebration dinner was planned for that evening, with both Titan Tech and Halvix executives gathering to toast their historic partnership. Eva knew now that it wasn't a partnership at all. 'Twas a heist wrapped in legal language around noon. She found Julian in the security control room, surrounded by walls of monitors. He raised an eyebrow as she entered, closing the door softly. Behind her, "You look like you haven't slept," he said. "Julian," she whispered. Glancing at the cameras, "I need to show you something." She pulled out her phone and opened the photos of the contracts. Julian leaned in, his brow furrowing as she explained the discrepancy between version A and version B. He whistled low under his breath. "So, you're saying if they sign the wrong version, Titan Tech loses everything," Eva said. "Its patents, its software, all of it. Halvix takes over, and Richard won't even realize until it's too late." Julian leaned back in his chair, rubbing his jaw. "Damn, that explains a lot. Those Halvix guys have been acting too clean, like they know they're walking into free money." "We need proof," Eva said. "More than just photos, something that can't be denied." Julian hesitated for a moment, then opened a drawer and pulled out a sleek black laptop bag. "One of the Halvix consultants left this in the basement storage room last month," he said. "I logged it, but no one came for it. I didn't think much of it until now." Eva took the laptop too. Her tiny apartment after her shift, her heart racing. She set it on her rickety kitchen table and pressed the power button. The screen lit up with a password prompt. She tried a few guesses. Halvix Titan, merger 22-5. Nothing. She thought back to something she'd overheard. Grant Holloway say in the boardroom, "Project takeover is right on schedule." Her fingers trembled. As she typed project takeover, the screen unlocked. What she found inside was worse than she'd imagined. Emails, presentations, a hidden folder labeled PT. She opened it and scanned message after message. Grant and his team had been planning this for months. The merger was a smokescreen. The moment Richard signed version B, Halvix would absorb Titan Tech's intellectual property while leaving its debts behind. One email made Eva's stomach turn. From Grant Holloway to Halvix executive team subject. Contract versions, make sure version B is the one Richard signs. Version A stays in the binder as a decoy. By the time anyone notices, Titan Tech will already be ours. Eva leaned back, covering her mouth, her pulse hammering in her ears. She had enough to expose them, but now she had another problem. Staying safe, the next night, the executive dining room sparkled with crystal glasses and polished silver. The air hummed with the clinking of champagne flutes and the murmur of low conversation. Eva moved through the room with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, invisible as always, but her eyes were locked on Grant Holloway. He stood near the windows, laughing with Richard, his perfect white teeth gleaming under the chandelier light. As she passed the open door to the anteroom, Eva froze. Grant's voice drifted out, low and conspiratorial. "By this time tomorrow, we'll own their software before they even realize it," he said. "The beauty of hiding things in legalese, no one ever reads the fine print." Another voice chuckled. "You're sure Carlton hasn't caught on?" Grant laughed softly. "His ego is our best ally. He's too busy posing for the press to read anything he signs." Eva's fingers clenched around the tray. Her suspicion was now undeniable truth. Later, as the night wore on and the executives grew comfortable with wine and self-congratulation, Eva slipped into the staff hallway. Julian was waiting there, holding a flash drive. "You were right," he said. "That laptop, this stuff is dynamite. Enough to bury them." Eva nodded, determination hardening her fear. "We need to get this to someone who can actually stop it, someone Richard can't ignore." Patricia Townsend, Julian said immediately. "Coup. She's the only one who doesn't kiss Richard's ass, and she actually reads the contracts." The plan was set. Tomorrow morning, before the signing, Eva would deliver the proof to Patricia. It was the only chance to stop the betrayal before it became irreversible. Morning sunlight cut through the glass walls of Titan Tech's executive lounge, catching in the silver edges of the coffee machines and the gloss of polished conference tables. The air carried that hushed, anticipatory energy that came before major events. Today was the day of the official signing of the Halvix-Titan Tech merger. For everyone else, it was a celebration. For Eva Coleman, it was the moment of truth. She wheeled her cleaning cart down the corridor, keeping her steps measured. Her gray uniform and lowered gaze masked the adrenaline pulsing through her veins. Tucked inside the pocket of her apron was a flash drive containing emails, hidden folders, and the single page of the altered contract. It was her key to stopping the takeover and, possibly her key to saving the life she thought she had lost. Patricia Townsend. Titan Tech's chief operating officer was alone in the executive lounge, reviewing documents with the sharp focus of a woman who missed nothing. Her steel gray hair was pulled back in a sleek bun, and her reading glasses perched low on her nose. She looked up as Eva entered, and a flicker of surprise and recognition crossed her face. "Eva, isn't it?" she said, setting her papers aside. "Yes, ma'am." Eva hesitated, glancing toward the hallway, then approached the table. Her voice lowered to a whisper. "I need to show you something. It's about the Halvix deal. It's urgent." Patricia's brow furrowed. She gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit and tell me." Eva slid the flash drive across the table with trembling hands. "The contract they're signing today, tinks it is. I found two versions. Version B gives Halvix complete ownership of Titan Tech's intellectual property. They've been planning this for months. I have proof, all on that drive." Patricia's sharp eyes scanned Eva's face, searching for any sign of exaggeration or deceit. Instead, she found only fear and determination. She plugged the flash drive into her sleek company laptop and opened the files. Eva's heart pounded as the coup scrolled through the emails, her expression hardening with every line. "Oh my God," Patricia whispered, almost to herself. She opened the folder labeled PT and clicked into the smoking gun email from Grant Holloway. Her lips tightened into a thin line. "This," she said, her voice steady, "this could destroy Halvix. And if what you're saying is true, Richard is about to hand over the company on a silver platter." Eva nodded, her hands curling in her lap. "I tried to warn him yesterday, but he wouldn't listen. He laughed at me. Sounds like Richard." Patricia stood abruptly, gathering the evidence onto a single encrypted file on her system. "Leave this with me. I'll handle it from here." Eva wanted to feel relieved, but her nerves refused to settle. As she left the lounge, pushing her cleaning cart, she couldn't shake the feeling that the walls had ears by the time the sun was high. The top floor of Titan Tech was a stage set for corporate theater. Cameras were being mounted. Journalists arranged their recording equipment, and polished executives rehearsed their smiles. A long mahogany table gleamed under the light, two identical sets of contracts laid out on opposite ends. Crystal glasses filled with sparkling water lined the table, and in the corner, champagne cart waited for its dramatic post-signing moment. Eva lingered near the back of the room, feigning busyness as she adjusted the chairs. Her heart thumped. In her ears, Richard Carlton swept in, his designer suit immaculate, his silver hair perfectly combed. He was flanked by the Halvix team, with Grant Holloway at the front. Grant's eyes scanned the room like a hawk assessing his territory. "Let's make history," Reacher said, grinning as he took his seat at the head of the table. Grant gave a subtle nod to his assistant, who slid version B of the contract toward Richard. Eva's pulse spiked. She could see the corner of the page diversion footer. B. The trap was seconds from closing, before Richard could pick up the pen. Patricia Townsend entered the boardroom like a storm in a power suit. The room fell silent. Her heels clicked sharply against the polished floor as she approached the table. "Richard," she said, her tone like ice, "we need to talk, now." Richard blinked in surprise, irritation flashing across his face. "Patricia, can it wait?" No, it can't." She snapped her laptop open, projecting the incriminating emails onto the massive wall screen. "Before you sign anything, you need to see what your friends at Halvik's have been planning." Gasps rippled around the room as the damning words appeared. In bold black text, "Make sure version B is the one Richard signs. Version A is our insurance policy only." Grant Holloway's mask cracked for the first time. His smile faltered, and his hand twitched on the table. "This is absurd," he said smoothly, but the edge in his voice betrayed him. Completely fabricated. "Where did you even from your own consultant's laptop?" Patricia interrupted, her eyes cold. "And unless you want law enforcement involved, I suggest you start explaining yourself." The room erupted in murmurs. Journalists began whispering, their cameras discreetly rolling. Richard's face turned the color of ash. Eva stood frozen. In the corner, her heart pounding with vindication. Grant's eyes swept the room, and for a split second, they locked with hers. Realization flickered there he knew. He knew the invisible janitor had outsmarted him. "You," he said quietly, venom in his tone. "You did this." Richard turned, following Grant's gaze to Eva. Finally seeing her not as a piece of furniture, but as the woman who had just saved his company. The fallout was immediate. Halvik's executives were escorted out of the building by security, their faces pale with fury and humiliation. Legal teams descended, and emergency meetings were called to unravel the mess before it hit the stock market. The story broke within hours. Janitor exposes $100 million corporate betrayal. For the first time in years, Eva didn't feel invisible. Reporters tried to talk to her. Richard Carlton himself, awkward and humbled, thanked her in front of the board. But Eva didn't want fame or recognition. She wanted her life back. A week later, she handed in her gray uniform for the last time. Patricia Townsend had offered her a position in the legal department, impressed by her sharp eye and calm under pressure. It wasn't just a job, it was a second chance. As Eva walked out of Titan Tech Tower one final time as a janitor, she glanced up at the gleaming glass facade. The city lights reflected in her eyes, but this time she didn't feel small. Sometimes the person no one sees everything.